I did want to have you come on the world's greatest retic podcast to talk about some backlash and the whole TK line episode you guys put out. I actually really enjoyed that line because I actually really enjoyed that video. I mean, because you guys went a lot further than I did years ago on that line, and it was interesting to see. I'm really into like looking into bloodlines and stuff. I've been into that for years. So, I actually considered that to be probably your most informative episode to date. And I don't think it was as well received by others as it was by me.
Yeah, I think that. So with Nathan and I think the biggest whiplash and backlash that we got from it were actually people that did not actually watch the episode. And I think where that came from was I also had made a post several months back about just like, it wasn't even serious. I was like, should we consider changing the TK line name because of Travis and everything? We won't go down that road.
Oh, I remember that.
What he did. And so I think a lot of people assume that I had a target on TK's back, and that definitely wasn't the case. But I want to start first and foremost by saying that everything that I talked to you about on this episode is me. It's not Nathan.
Disclaimer for Nathan.
Yeah, disclaimer for Nathan. Everything that I am going to say, it's going to be my thoughts, my opinions. Nathan might agree with some of them. He might not agree with them. But at the end of the day, this is your podcast having me on, and this is not a representation of the Retic Lounge as a, duo, so to say. But yeah, I think the entire message of the episode was lost. We were very clear at the beginning what it was.
Yeah, people missed the forest through the trees on that one.
Yeah, I think that, and I can empathize and I can understand. I could put myself in other people's shoes and realize that, like, the stuff that we came out with the TK line, it's going to upset people because people spend a lot of money on these animals as Kalatoas. Breeders have been selling them for years as Kalatoas, right? So, like, I get it. I knew it was going to upset some people, but I wish that a lot of people who shared or who mentioned or talked about it actually took the time to watch it, because a lot of people made public statements in a negative way about it. And then I would message them and be like, did you watch it? And they would say no. And I'm like, then what are you doing? So yeah, that it is what it is. It was definitely one of the episodes where, my clear intentions of doing it, I'm a locality geek and nerd. And every animal that I have that's a locality in my garage, aside from the F2s that I produced and the one male Solayer where I can track back the data info, all of them are F1 or wild caught. And I do that intentionally because it's only one or two steps to trace back to importation.
Yeah, you're not going back from F3s or something like that.
Yeah, F3s, and then, like with the TK line, right? You don't know if people had them before that bred and took it to maybe another Kalatoa and then took it to, another line, or took them just to each other. Like, you don't know the full history and lineage of the animal that most people are buying today for TKs. So it kind of puts them in a rut. Even if I didn't come out with the information, most people that buy TK Kalatoas don't bother to look back at the history of like who bred them and where they came from, because it's just like, it's the TK Kalatoa, right?
Well, one thing I was mistaken about, I wasn't making claims or anything, but I assumed there was multiple lines. I just assumed there was, because he had multiple wild caughts. I didn't realize that more or less we only have evidence for basically at least one male, one female. I honestly thought there was more lines. Andrew just dropped off a really nice pure super dwarf, And before he pulled it out of the bag, I said, "What is it?" He's like, "Well, it's technically an old school Superdorf. We can't get any background data on it." And he pulls it out. I'm like, "This is what do you mean? This is a Madu?" And he's like, "Well," I was like, "Dude, this is visibly a Madu." And he's like, it came from someone. I was like, "I know those snakes. Those are Madus." And and that's just an instance that sucks
Right.
that I can't throw Madu on it because I don't have any paperwork on those wild caughts. But it's like,
Yeah.
it is what it is. But we got to call it a pure Superdorf.
I have an undocumented pure Superdorf in my garage right now on breeding loan with Chris Gear. He
Really?
got it from Garrett, and Garrett got it from. I'd have to look in my records to see who bred them, but it's
Was it John
undoubtedly
Cashman?
maybe Cashman, but I'm
'Cause
not.
I think that's where this one came from.
I'm not sure 100%. But
Oh, that's the one I told you looks like a Madu.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
It's got the tight dorsal stripe kind of going down like the pattern, and it looks like a Madu, and she's tiny. She's 2-time proven breeder, and she's at like on a good day 7 feet.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean that's just kind of where my head is at.
Did anybody have any constructive criticism, like for the episode, other than we're mad at you because you destroyed our dreams, or like was it just?
I had one conversation, one phone call with someone like a few days after it came out, and the constructive criticism was, "I wish you would have pitched the other side of the argument that they are." And I was like, I don't disagree. It would have been nice to be able to provide two sides of the story, but where we were coming from in the episode was, this is the information we have found, which I had been doing for about 4 to 6 months with the help of someone else. And that's like, we shared all the information that we had. So I tried getting that point across. I said, that's good feedback. Cause their biggest concern was, you didn't give a solution. And I said, I didn't give a solution because I'm not anybody in the industry to be making 100% factual claims. I'm not the person to try to create a standard. I'm not the person to try to come up with, this is what we should do, unless I'm talking to other people in the industry that are relevant and what we're going to do, or the information that we can try to find. There unfortunately was just not a solution at the time. The solution to do is try to find more information.
Yeah, I don't think there's not always a solution to a problem. There's just information and you adjust accordingly. But I mean, I think I think the purpose and reason for putting out the episode kind of got skewed a little bit. And like your guys' real reason versus the accusations for why you did it, if you want to touch on that at all.
Yeah, and I'll even be honest with this part, and I'll mention Nathan in this. I reached out to Nathan. I sent him all the information. I was like, I sent him all the information. I was like, hey, being that I love locality, I think this is something that we should do. I think we need to put this out there for people to draw their own conclusions and for them to see the evidence to support that these are at best questionable. And the purpose of it, with me being a locality snob, is that I wanted to, and we said this in the beginning, was to warn people about the information that I found and that was presented on. We should maybe hold off on taking TKs to other established lines of Kalatoa that have a paper trail.
Yeah.
So that we don't potentially ruin Kalatoas in the United States forever. Like, for me, being the locality snob, if there's a shadow of a doubt, I stay away. Now, one thing that I am working on, like just as a human in the retic industry, is that if people don't have the same standard that I do, I'm trying to no longer be the vocal person on social media and being that like locality police that's like, no, where's the info? Because at the end of the day, what really matters is my stock and what I am representing and telling people that I have. And if I have the information to back it up, beautiful. And if people aren't going to follow that same standard, it's really out of my control, because one thing that I'm learning in this industry and just with humans in general is if people aren't open to changing their mind, there's nothing you can do, show, say.
Yeah, no amount of evidence. Yeah.
Yeah.
But a quick question though. You just hatched out Slayers, right?
Mm-hmm.
Now, before I got, because I'm still on like a ban from Facebook, I can't post in groups, but I got in an argument with that guy with that quote unquote pure Slayer.
It's pretty shocking that it took this long for you to have this long of a ban. I'm just saying.
I know. Well, usually, and I got it for making a joke about something else, but like you produce pure Slayers. I'm guessing you don't want one of your Slayers taken and bred to say that animal and then sold as pure Slayers from the line you're working with and that line that's the quote unquote GC line Slayer. Like I can't imagine, and that's where you're going to have to be the bad guy in some cases because if I see somebody with a fake ternate, which I don't have to worry about that. We don't have to worry unless somebody gets like a 50% or something and calls it pure. I don't have to worry about that.
Not now, but once people get enough of your Homoharas and they get enough of your ternates, people will start crossing those, and that's going to be difficult.
Yeah, and I don't have a problem being a dick, but that's going to put you in a position where you're going to have to. If they do this and they do misrepresent it, you're going to have to say something. I just had a guy hit me up. I can't think of his name. He goes, "Hey, what do these snakes look like to you?" I think they were mislabeled, blah, blah, blah. He sends me this picture and I look at him and I'm like, I can't, people expect me to be like, that has 12.5 this, and and it's like, but I looked at him and I said, I can't tell you what those are, but they look like they have some sort of saputrii in them. He goes, they were sold to me as pure Soloesses. And I'm like, well, those aren't pure Soloesses. I said, were they produced?
Maybe Southerns? Maybe.
Yeah. Maybe. No, they weren't. And I said, by chance, were those produced by that deadly tarantula lady?
Mm.
And he goes, I don't know. It came from so-and-so. I said, here's the videos of her. I think it was Jay Klotz, and for some reason they brought in Jay Brewer because he's such an expert on everything. And they had this discussion with this girl because she bred what was clearly a Sola to something that just looked like a run-of-the-mill normal retic. And she's like, no, look, they're the same snake. And it was a big, I don't remember if you remember this. This was like 3 or 4 years, but 4 years ago, she produced this clutch and was selling them as pure Soloesses. And everybody was like, those aren't pure fucking Soloesses.
Yeah,
what are you doing?
Like, especially like Sulawesi is the one locality in this country where there's enough diehard fans.
Oh,
you're not going to get away with that.
Well, you can, how many wild caughts are left? You know what I mean?
Like
it's not,
4?
Yeah, you can't.
Maybe.
Yeah, you can't really like be like, oh, this is, and that's what they were. They're like, oh, this is too, I forget what Sulawesi they used, what line it was, or it was wild caught, but they had this just normal ass male, and they're like, no, this is a Sulawesi. It's like, on what, like, are you blind?
On what? Yeah.
Are you blind?
Yeah.
And so people don't think, oh, it's not that big of a deal, but here we are 4 years later. This guy's hitting me up. He's like, what do you think this is? And I looked at him like, man, I really think they have saputrii in them. But, there's some kind of cross.
Yeah, the way that I handle those kind of things, because I get message at least once a day, hey, what locality is this? And the first thing I tell people is, even if it looks undoubtedly like a locality, right? Kind of like the story you were telling about the Madu type that you received from Andrew, is, if we can't get it back to like, the importer, if we don't know who imported it, it can look like whatever, but it's not going to really, for my standard, right? So I let them know that, but then I do give them a guess. And generally, if people are asking me about other people's animal, I will generally ask them to do what I do, is follow the paper trail, ask them who bred the parents. If they did, ask them where the grandparents came, and just try to confirm if you can. Try to go back and do that. And then, you know, if you end up settling on an animal that you can't trace back and you're just going to call it what it's being sold as, then, you know, again, your prerogative. But yeah, ideally, I would like if my animals, my pure locality animals that were purchased by people to make pures had other pures. And I know right now with the layers, in 2020, there were 2 clutches, both of those clutches completely unrelated to one another. Outside of that, I only know of one wild caught male that Blake had. I don't know who bought it. I do. Someone just texted me.
Was that last one they could track down from that group I had? I think that was that male.
Yeah, I think so. And then there is the, you know, and there might be one other female out, but again, so that's what I'm saying with Salayers is that like the stock is very limited. Like people don't realize there might be a lot out there that people aren't active on social media, but they only come from 2 different stocks right now. We don't have, you know, and unfortunately, you know, Nerd had beautiful pure Salayers, but you know, the Golden Child thing came into play and, you know, and that kind of makes things a little sticky. So if it's okay, I just want to make it like, I don't think I want to be a little bit more direct and clear on the intention of the video. I don't have a target on Travis's back. I know that he went through a really rough time with substance use. He made bad decisions. I'm a therapist. I understand he's human and he went through a really shitty point in his life. I don't know what he's doing now. Had nothing to do with Travis as an individual and me wanting to take him down. It was literally, I saw this as, holy crap. If we look at 2022 and we look at all of the Kalatoa clutches that were produced, I went back to the US Superdorf page and it was something in the 70% of the people that posted different clutches of Kalatoas had TK in them.
Yeah.
And I was like, this is alarming. Let me let people know so that we can potentially save Kalatoa from becoming extinct in this country. And that was our intention of the episode. Flat out. That was it. Unfortunately, you know, I got told that I was just trying to take out Travis, or I was trying to piss off people that, you know, bred them. People think that me and Garrett like don't talk and like we hate each other. Like, nope, me and Garrett are on talking terms. Like this had nothing to do with me trying to take down Garrett Hartle. I don't want that to happen.
He got more backlash than you guys did.
Well, because he has a good TK stock. He has amazing TK animals.
And I was throwing gas on that fire like a mature person, like a mature human being I am. But there was like I saw in the comments people were very upset. You know, the people that had spent that money. And I remember telling Glenn, when Glenn had called me and he was digging, you and him were like digging into this shit like simultaneously, if I remember correctly. He was working on that book and you were just doing research or whatever. And
we kind of met in the middle and talked about it.
Well, he thought I was fucking with him when I told him, I said, I remember the day they turned into Kalatoas. He's like, what? And he just thought I was fucking with him. But I mean, I guess that would get into your evidence and, you know, why it's, we're, you know, kind of why it's important to, you know, understand what you have and the paper trail on it before you're mixing it with other verified quote unquote bloodlines. So,
yeah. And I mean, basically what it came down to was, you know, and if you guys, you know, are looking for the information, I would encourage you to watch the episode because we bring the screenshots up, which we're probably not going to bring here on this episode. But yeah, the evidence that I found.
If you send them to me, I can throw them in. It's not a big deal.
Okay, I'll go back in I think I have.
Because I'm not going to edit this shit tonight. I'll do it tomorrow. So if you send them to me, I'll put them in.
Okay, yeah. So, Travis picked up a pair of imports that came from Bob, and there was a post that, you know, the animals were, someone said that, yeah, these were, you know, imported and labeled originally as Champeas, right?
Yeah.
But after Travis having them for years and them not growing, it was quick. And this was also the time where, Jampeas, the gas bars and Jampeas were getting 12, 13, 14 feet when you fed them. And so he posted another picture and said this was originally imported as Jampea, but I'm thinking it's Superdorf.
And I'm okay with that because it was visibly not a Jamp.
Yeah, exactly.
Visibly not a Coyote.
Yeah, there were people in the comments that we show the comments thread, and I think Gavin Bowe at one point was like, "That looks Madu. That looks like a Madu." And
that was me. That was blocked out.
Oh, geez.
That was me and Travis talking years ago because it was said that looks like a Madu. It looks just like my male.
Okay, I'll look at the screenshots and everything, but like I said, I'll give them to you so you can put them up and just line them up to when we're talking. And so, so then what he ended up doing, which I think was the right call originally, was he called that original Anery male a Superdorf, right? And that Anery male was taken to a wild caught from the same group, undocumented, right? Or at least, maybe Jampea originally, but wasn't a Jampea. And he took it to this female and he made some clutches from those animals. And right around the time of 2013, he took that Anery male to an offspring of that clutch that I'm referencing to a female. And when the babies came out, they were labeled as Kalatoa from that Anery male. And it's funny because the one TK that I had, I think it was the sire from that clutch, the dates of that post and the dates of the birth date that I got from the parents matched. So I knew for a fact that the animal that I had and the animal that many people have, because there's been 3 or 4 clutches of these produced over the last 4 or 5 years, came from that stock, that post where he magically called them Kalatoa. And this is, you got to think about the zeitgeist, at the time.
Yeah.
This is where importation was about to stop the following year in a few months, and locality stuff the price was shooting up.
Well, the price actually didn't shoot up on them until 2014 when they announced it. In 2013, no one gave a shit. But when they announced that shit in 2014 in April, and then you had X amount of time to try to get something in. But one of the problems was all the importers knew that the U.S. was moving towards making it illegal. So they're like, well, we're done offering retics.
Yeah.
Because they got to buy, you have to get quotas and whatever. So they're like, well, we're not going to buy a bunch of quotas to be stuck with them, And, man, that sucked.
So
that sucked when we lost importation.
Yeah. I mean, it's far-fetched, but I'm hoping. Anyways.
I think there's a perfect, easy argument to get it back, but.
So going back to this, post that was, so right then and there was where I was like, okay, we don't have, we know at the very least that a very founding stock of TK stuff was not actually TK. It came from this undocumented, animal. And so that raised the doubt that concerned me. And that doubt, the reason why it concerns me is because, I talked to someone who said they were able to talk to Travis Cubis after the episode, and they said that there were multiple animals and multiple imports, and some were, Kalatoa. And, my concern is that people who bought those founding animals that were not Kalatoa as Kalatoas then bought other animals from Travis that might have been Kalatoa, but then took them together. And it just raises too much doubt to, again, I'm thinking about the potential consequence. Consequences could be good or bad. I'm looking at the potential consequences of what happens, and I see the bad outweighing the good. And the bad simply is that we ruined Kalatoa. So that's why the episode was just pulled out.
Well, I think part of the backlash and part of the just general maybe apathy towards it is maybe one thing you're not taking into consideration there's only a small handful of us that actually give a shit
Exactly.
about pure localities.
Exactly.
You know, you can count us on a hand or two. So, you know, and the reason I don't see it as much of a big deal as you do is one is I think Karumpa, Karumpa, Kalatoa, Maduro are the same fucking snake.
I mean,
with just minor,
I do think,
you know,
yeah,
that's, you know, I think we're just splitting hairs. Yeah, I think we're just splitting hairs on what island. You know, it's like, well, it's this snake, it's this kind of retic, but it came from this island. So I think that's important. But to me, the actual value of all the super dwarfs isn't their locality so much as their ability to create a much more manageable size pet. Like, to me, that's their long-term value.
So I'm going to kind of challenge that statement. And I think that I believe you when you say that you don't give a shit about the, like, they're all the same type of retic, but that would be kind of the same as just calling your Ternates and Halmaheras and just categorizing them as,
well, I wouldn't throw Ternate and Halmahera. I would throw Ternate and Tadori and McCann and Motai.
So if we had those, you'd feel the same about those three as you would Madu, Karumpa, Karumpa, and Kalatoa.
Well, I don't put them in the same. I would say they're the same in their ability to fuck with pattern and color. They have that same value in the way that Karumpa, Karumpa, Madu, Kalatoa have the way to positively affect size.
Yeah.
You know, I do think that string of islands right off of Halmahara, you know, there's 4 or 5 right there, and there's 2 in there, Hyri and another one, that are potentially super dwarf islands. But I do think those are essentially the same animal, just going to have some slight genetic variation from being separated. So I would, you know, I would want people to keep lines separate. Like, if I had it, it would matter to me. I would keep them separate. But I would see their value of increasing aesthetic value to our morphs as their actual value.
And that's why I guess I'm challenging you on this, is because I know you don't keep super dwarfs, right? You might have like a few that you have that you're working with Andrew on, but like it would matter to you if you had Tadori, you had, you know, if you had
I would keep them separate.
Exactly, because you care about that that, you know, chunk of locality or that region of retics, whereas, you know, and that's kind of where I said I'm going to challenge you on that, because I think it does matter to you, but you just don't work with the super dwarf stuff much. Well, so
but it doesn't matter to me as much because
I
of what they're being used for. That's it's not that it doesn't matter, it's just like 99% of people with these animals are using them to downsize.
Exactly. And that's where
where I think some of the kickback came from, because they thought, well, if I downsize it with these well-known TK line, then it's going to be worth a little bit more. Just like people think if they downsize it with a Karumpa or a Madu, it's going to have this extra value. And when I look at that, I'm like,
it's still a cross, no matter what.
Yeah, I'm like, okay. If you think you can tack an extra 2,500 on because it's 25% or 50% Madu versus 50% TK versus 50% Karumpa, like, good luck with that. But
no, I agree, and here's what I've been trying to preach to people on like different posts. When, you know, every once in a while someone will post, like, you know, there's a post on the Retic Nation like, so what's the consensus on TK, right? And I try
science by consensus,
right? So I try to advocate for, you know, the value of TK TK Superdors should not change because they are now just pure Superdors for, you know, the people that you know, care or, you know, I mean, just again, with the evidence that's out there, I think that it's people are using these animals to downsize, like you said. And at the end of the day, whether it's a super dwarf unknown, whether it's a Kalatoa, a Madu, a Karumpa, I mean, shit, we can even go to Jampea and to Slayer. When you are utilizing those locality animals to take the morphs, which is what 90% of people are doing,
Yeah.
Right. Because again, there's maybe just a couple handful of us that actually really genuinely care about preserving localities. The only thing that matters is size impact and the phenotypic expression of that locality when you're taking it to a morph. So, for example, the Karumpas that we have here in the country, or Karumpas, whatever the hell they are, those animals that we have here on the country are very pixelated, are very broken up, and make good marbles, right? So you would use that to enhance and make better looking marbles. And the TK stuff that's out there, a lot of it is super yellow and super bright. You want to take that into platinums and into orange ghost stripes.
That's what happens when you cross Madu with Kalatoa.
Right.
You just look at my crosses from fucking 12 years ago. They look the exact same.
So I'm trying to tell people, like, let's not panic. Let's still sell the TK stuff for what they're going for.
Their inherent value actually hasn't changed because of what you're using it for.
Yeah.
And I'm sorry, but if you bought into this hype of you were going to make pure TK Kalatoas and become a fucking millionaire, that's on you, dude. You know what I mean? It's like, I'm not trying to shit on anybody or be a dick, but if you bought it out of hype and didn't understand its actual value and the route you need to go with it, that was the buyer's mistake.
Right. And like what I try to tell people as well, like, everybody talks about like the value changes, like you were saying, of like a 50% Kalatoa, 25% Madu Motley, right?
Yeah.
Or like at the end of the day, once you start taking it into morphs, the locality does not matter. The only thing that matters is that individual animal's visual expression, their phenotypic expression, and what you are taking it to make the best version of that morph.
And make it smaller.
And make it smaller. So if anything, I think what we need to be doing is now increasing the price of Kalatoas slightly, because now that I have this awareness and I'm looking back to my standards on what we can track back, oh my gosh, stupid thing. I don't know if you saw that, but now what it's there's maybe 4 or 5 lines of Kalatoas that I would buy into.
Even my line, I don't have paperwork for.
Right.
And it's like, dude, they're Kalatoas. I don't have line for my Madus either. You know why? Because nobody gave a shit. It was almost 20 years ago.
Yeah, that was what, 2009, 2008 when you got that female Madu?
No, that was when I first started producing them. I had them in like 2006.
Yeah. So that's what I'm saying is, like,
I had Madus, Kaiwatis, and Kalatoas in like 2006 or something.
Yeah.
Nobody gave a shit.
No one did. No one kept it. No one, and most people who got them back then, they can't even tell you, like, they might have been told the import information, but again, it wasn't relevant. It wasn't important. So then when you ask them 20 years later, what do we, so yeah, I mean, at the end of the day, there's no need to panic, especially if you're someone who is going to just be taking these into morphs and shrinking down morphs. Like, you still have a phenomenal animal. And as a matter of fact, like, there are other undocumented or old school super dwarfs out there that I think TKs are more valuable than those, because TKs were actually worked and line bred to produce really good looking animals. Like, Travis did put years and years and years into making very good looking super dwarfs, and that is worth something.
Yeah, I kind of kick myself of not sticking it out with super dwarfs from the financial aspect, but if I would have stuck with it, they would all still be here, and I don't know if there would ever been any hype, because I'd still be selling them for $500 or whatever. So, I remember I wanted Karumpas so bad for so long, and I finally got them in, and they came in with some of the same shipments of ternates, and it's like, Karumpas for sale.
Yeah, when you look at them side by side, it's like,
hard. It's like, well, I guess I'm selling these Karumpas.
Yeah.
And it's just,
that's because
I'm really happy with what I have, and I mean, there's a couple things I would have done different. But, it'd be nice to have it would have been nice if I would have kept, because that shit that I started getting in 2011, 2013, 12, 13, 14, those were that was the years, and it wasn't just me, it was other people, where there was really good documentation.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
people had invoices, people had access to the exporter. Especially, I was talking to people on islands that was catching them. Like, you know, it was like, okay, hey, this got caught this day.
Yeah, I
Tell
feel
the
like
farm,
from
yeah,
2013 to 15, that was the heyday of locality stuff. That's when we got a
that was the
lot of
heyday
stuff.
of it coming in,
Yeah,
you
that's what I
know,
mean.
and it was, yeah, but there was still, even then, you know, there wasn't that much of a demand. There was a handful of us. You know, Wolfgang was bringing all his stuff in those years. I was getting my stuff. There was a handful of other people, and you know, I think Aubrey had Mike Cole had brought him in, and I didn't take him because it was when I was still dealing with Mike. He had Madura. Madura is where G stripes come from. The real nice yellow heads.
Cool.
I don't know whatever. Like, there was a group of
No
Maduras.
one knows, man.
You know what I mean? It would be like,
That's the same question with Solayers, man. People were pumping Solayers out from 2004 to 2012. They were being pumped out almost every year, and now it's like, where the hell are all these snakes?
yeah, they're all gone.
But yeah, I've always told people, like, I love my locality stuff, and it's not because, like, I genuinely do think localities will continuously hold their value better than morph stuff because there's so many people in the morph game that the market's just too volatile. Not enough people doing the pure locality stuff, and there's just not enough of them to just like super over saturate a market with them. And I think that,
Yeah, it's kind of hard to crash a market with 10 eggs.
right, exactly. And so, you know, but I tell people all the time, and I mean this, like literally mean this from my soul. If we could have importation in, dude, I would be so happy to drop down my prices. And
Oh yeah, I wouldn't. I don't give a fuck
and
about
you know
those
what?
prices.
You know, like what marketing technique that I would utilize to maybe, like, instead of selling an import, you know, for locality for like 500 and maybe sell them for 750, is I would take it through the flagell stage. I would take it through the socialization stage, and then I would go and vend at shows and say these have been treated for parasites, they've been nido tested, they've been all this shit, and this is why my localities are more than others. But yeah, I mean, I would do that in a heartbeat, man. There are so many localities that I just wish we freaking had, man.
Well, I'm also happy getting $2,500 for a pair of pures of whatever.
And to be honest, man, I thought that, like, that, I think it's a very fair price, and I think my Solaire clutch is proving
That it's a fair price.
That it's a fair price, because I have, you know, 24 babies, 24 eggs, 24 babies hatch, and 12 are spoken for with down payments. I got half the clutch sold before the last one left the egg.
Yeah, so I've always priced stuff on 2 to 3 times whatever I paid for it out of the wild. And that's how I came up with the $2,500 price on Turnates and everything. And I just left it there. And I'm really glad I didn't put them up at $5,000.
Yeah.
And, you know, I'm just glad that for 5 years now, they've been the same price, because it seems like other localities are now coming down to that $2,500 mark, and I think that's a good place for them to be.
Me too.
I think that's a fair price. It's 2 to 3 times what you would pay for them out of the wild when we could still get them. Why is that not a fair price?
Exactly. Now that they're being captive bred, and I agree. And one thing that I've learned about myself as a breeder over the last 4 years is, I would much rather have a competitive, good price and get rid of animals before they turn a year old.
Yeah.
Than have to sit on animals at a higher price and, man, cleaning them, feeding them. I got to buy bigger racks if I plan to hold them back for that much longer. Like, I would rather the price be like, I list them at a price where people don't bother to negotiate with me.
Yeah.
And that's what happens. And so for most of my locality stuff, it's going to be $2,500 a pair, a little bit more for females and males. And that's that. And I understand that majority of the people that buy the localities from me want to take it to morph to enhance, phenotypic expression. I do have a few people that want to continue breeding pure locality stuff, but it's not, it's not for everyone, and I'm okay with that.
Yeah. Well, we kind of covered everything off that topic, other than Were you guys ever shown any evidence to the contrary of what you guys put out in that video?
No, and like I said, I talked to someone who works a lot with the TK line, and they said that they were able to, talk to Travis and that there was some more evidence, and it was never shown to me, but I think that if anybody has more information on them, you got to make it public, because at the time that the video was made, I had a TK animal. When I was doing the research for this, I was doing the research to try to prove that my animal was a Kalatoa. I was not trying to piss off the Superdwarf community. And when I found this out, I shared it with Nathan on the podcast. And at the end of the day, if someone has information to contradict what I found or have other lines of TK stuff that are legit Kalatoa, please come out with it. I'm 1000% okay with being wrong. Like, if someone finds information,
maybe Bob will find it on the paperwork with the Aztec.
Right. If someone comes out with information that shows that there are TKs out there that are Kalatoa, I'll be the first person to make a video after they come public with it and share the information as good news. Because I want TK to be Kalatoa, because without them being Kalatoas, we really don't have a lot of Kalatoas, and that's not a good thing.
Yeah, I didn't realize how few there were.
There's not a lot, dude.
Until I started thinking about it after I watched that video. I was like, fuck, dude,
where are they? You tell me.
There's just not out. I don't think people realize how few localities are left and how old all our wild caughts are getting.
Yeah, my female was imported 2012/13, and I obviously we can't tell that age, but we're at her being 11 years in captivity, and she's had 4 clutches. I don't have a lot of time left with her. She's probably got 1, maybe 2 more good clutches in her. I'm not going to breed her every year and kill her at 15 years old. So, I'm she's got 1, maybe 2 good ones left in her, and there's some younger wild caught super dwarf stuff out there, right?
Yeah.
But again, when it comes to locality specific, there's not much out. Oh, here's what tell me what you think about this. I've thought about this. I feel like we can make a good change in the locality game, by implementing the type label after a locality for animals that represent the phenotypic expression, the classic look of that locality, but we don't have supportive documentation. Like the animal you received from Andrew, that's a Madu type.
Yeah, I think you can do that. I think
the Morelia community has honed in on it, and people.
That's because they're all kind of, they touch their ranges. A lot of their ranges kind of, they're kind of on one place, so it's a little different with the retics because they're separate islands. I think you can do that. I don't even know if you need to. Well, like what I do is,
it'll help people's ego feel better.
Yeah. I guess if we're gonna try to improve egos, we could do that.
It's gonna make people feel better about a purchase they made as a locality, but they can't trace it back. Just slap the type label on there. If we make it known that there's not importation data, but it sure as hell looks like a Madu.
Yeah, well, and I also think there's phenotypical expression.
Overlap.
Yeah. There's a lot of that, and there's also throughout retics, especially in certain localities, you have a couple standard looks, and you don't see. There's a lot of variation, but you typically see either a tighter back pattern or a more spread out back pattern, or a lot more side banding or less coloration around the white rosettes. So, I think, because I kind of started doing that shit with the ternates. I was like, well, looks like we have phases. You got a red phase, green phase, normal. You got high side banding. You got chaotic back pattern. So I've been trying to do that just in ternates to try to, because, if I want to make a nice Sunfire or a nice Platinum, I'm going to use whatever animal has the most side banding, whatever has the most amount of color surrounding the white rosettes and the minuscule amount of the silver gray in between, because that's going to just accentuate what the morph does. So, I mean, I don't know. I don't know if you could apply that to as a locality type, as because I talk about it as a polygenic expression. So yeah, I mean, you might be able to do that, but I mean, I definitely think there's two color phases in
Right.
super dwarfs. I mean, I think they're safe to say you got a green or you got a fucking silver.
Right.
I mean, I said that a very long time ago. I was like, what, why? Like, cause when I was hatching them out, I was like, man, like, why do like some of these look this way and some of them look this way? And it's like, well, these are, looks like a color phase type, and it's just,
yeah,
how the pattern's set up and how the color's set up. But, I don't know what's, cause you're part of like the younger breeder crew in a sense. And I don't really talk to the older, I don't really talk to anybody. I talk to you and like three other people. Where's everybody's heads at these days on the market? I mean, I know the economy's a piece of shit, but I don't even consider, not to be a dick, but I don't even consider the mainland market. Like, it's just this thing.
I don't think much of it either.
You know what I mean? It's just this thing over here, kind of like, it's just like, it's just this thing over here that you kind of like try to not to look at.
It's not my market, right?
Yeah.
And so that's why I don't care for it. And that mainland market has been volatile for 2 decades now. Like it's never, people have never been able to agree on prices. I feel like people just throw out a price regardless of what the prices are on Morph Market. So, I don't know. I don't see too much panic with the younger people, because I think a lot of the younger people are doing it a little bit more intentionally. They're getting what they like and they're going to produce it anyways. And
and that's the one thing I've seen.
Yeah,
and
I think
the new crew.
Yeah, and I think people in general are just hopeful, right? Like, especially if you're new, you haven't produced a clutch, you bought all your animals during COVID times at a high price, and now you're seeing the price for everything drop. All you can tell yourself is the market's going to turn around. That's all you can tell yourself. If you're going to stay in it, and I see more older people selling collections than I do see younger people getting scared away.
And I think there's a handful. Yeah.
Let me clarify. I don't mean younger as in age. I mean newer.
I know.
In the hobby
keepers, but I don't think, I've watched a lot of people, including myself, weather the storm for a long time. I don't think a lot of them are making it through it.
Yeah.
I just, and I don't want to bring up me and Aubrey's drama, but I want to give you an example. When he announced those Turn 8 Motley het albinos, I was like,
world's first.
Yeah, it's the world's first. And he was like, they're free. And I'm like, well, how much does like just a regular Motley het albino go for? And I jump on,
what, like $250?
Yeah, like $200, give or take, $50 either way. And I'm like, I was like, what? Like, what is 20 or 30 free superior Motleys gonna do to this market? And some of those people cheering on Aubrey's are the ones with the Motleys on Morph Market that can't get $200 for them. They're like, yeah, Aubrey, go give away the snakes that I can't get $200. Give away a better version of the snake I can't even get $200 for. And I mean, I just have such a hard time not being a dick and making fun of the mainland market, because it just seems so fucking self-destructive.
Yeah.
That, I mean, I try to hold back, but after like 5 posts of like triple het to 3 other types of non-relative triple hets, like, fuck yeah, we're going to have, and it's like, I just start making fun of everybody. But I'm not seeing that in this younger group. I
will say there's, one post that I did see that was someone who produced their first clutch of retics, laid eggs. And my first reaction is, I'm so happy for you. I'm sure you've been wanting to do this for a long time. Good on you. But what they did was they took a Superdorf male to a female platinum tiger mainland and made first generation 50% Superdorf tiger platinums when we have tiger platinums at 87.5% Superdorf already. So like some people are just not, they don't have the right vision yet, but that's, you find a mentor and that can change.
Yeah.
You find someone to guide you in the right direction, and that can change. And maybe they were just excited and they had two
They
retics.
just wanted to,
right.
Wanted
And
to
I
make
get
some
that,
snakes. But they'll be able to sell them at their local shows for a few $100.
But here's the thing: is if the newer generation of keepers did not learn from the mistakes in the past, then we're doomed, right? So it's. I feel like at this point, it's kind of like natural selection in the sense of like you absolutely should be doing better off the bat if you started in 2020 than the people who started back in 2003.
Yeah. You should be making better decisions than we made in late 90s, early 2000s. But, I've already done what I've wanted to do with retics, was create one sustainable bloodline or one sustainable locality. So like everything else has just been kind of like playing. And you mentioned them taking that Superdorf to a platy tiger. I've been working really hard to up the percentage in ternate blood into morphs. So when you do want to do a breeding like that, you have almost no Superdorf blood or no mainland blood in say something like a platy tiger. So you can run a Superdorf to a 75%,
that's a good thing to do.
Ternate platy tiger. So now you're at 50% SD and you're at 37.5% ternate.
And you have how the ternate phenotypic expression overpowers the Superdorf stuff.
Yeah. And you have this snake that looks, and you make these platy tigers that look better than everyone else's platy tigers.
That's a good angle on the market. Like that's understanding the market and seeing that there's still people who want the simple codom stuff, and you have localities at your at your disposal to make those animals look a lot better and like really better, and then you can start to shrink them down.
Yeah, and I think that's
ternate's already shrinking them down, so you're getting a head start on that.
Yeah, you're already shrinking them down, and you're removing a lot of inbreeding. And you're removing a lot of big genes.
I don't think people even realize that is like, and that's why I think localities for people in general are important to have, because all the mainland stuff, right? And I'm not speaking negatively on the mainland market, just what it is. It's inbred and it's line bred. And the moment that you introduce a locality to that, you're giving those genetics life again. Like you're
cleaning it up so much.
Yeah. So. Yeah, I mean, I think that's a good angle to take it. But yeah, I do see the newer generation of keepers and breeders being smarter about it. Less of them are jumping in full force. They're being selective. They're saying, this is what I love. This is what I want to do. And, there's a lot of people that are buying into the Superdorf cow project. And I would normally say like, be careful with that market because a lot of people are jumping in. But at the end of the day, cows are one of the like
they're
pinnacles.
Easy fucking snakes to sell.
They're easy to yeah. They're one of the pinnacles. So if that's what you like, then go for it. Superdorf cows being somewhat affordable is a very good thing. Like a lot of people get into this thinking that I have to produce snakes that are $3,000, $4,000. It's like. Those are the clutches that you sit back on longer and you got to take care of longer and you got to do all that. Like it's okay to have animals at a good competitive price.
Oh yeah. The pet market of retics, like every other market in reptiles, is so much larger than the high-end breeder market.
It is.
And that's why I still work with a lot of single gene animals, bumping them up in other localities, and then take for me or for somebody else to take them into Superdorfs.
I'll give an example on how that is. I consign clutches, sometimes for people that I know the information of the animals and all that. Theron sent me a clutch that produced ultra ivories, Anri ultra ivories, Sunfires, Motleys, Tigers, the whole gambit, Platinums. They were 40. 47.5% Super Door, 12.5% Jampea. The average cost of snaking that clutch was $500. Once I got those animals in my possession and established, took me 2.5 months to sell that clutch.
Yeah.
Like they sold like this, man.
Because that's that pet
Yeah.
market.
You still got to be responsible as a breeder on who they're going to, in my opinion.
Yeah.
But nonetheless, like, it's okay to have entry level price stuff. And I'm not saying cows should be Superdorf cows should be entry level at any point in time. But
I think they were supposed to be
30.
They were supposed to be like 30 G's or something.
Knock it off.
No, I'm serious. Like that was like supposed to be the original price or some shit from like a few years back. And, I think those days are over. I gotta tell you, I don't think you can talk somebody into buying SD double het, albino pieds for.
We're not there anymore.
Stupid. I think that shit's over. So that's why I was asking you, like, because you talked to a lot of the people that've been doing this, 5-6 years, like 3 to 6 years. Where are they at? Because they have to be seeing what I'm seeing, and that's...
yeah. And I mean, some of them are bummed, and some of them are frustrated with how the market has like really gone down. What I've always told them is that when the economy is down, the market is down. When the economy booms, the market booms, and it's always going to wax and wane.
Yeah, the unfortunate thing is prices don't tend to go back up. They tend to just sell more at that price.
Which is better than holding on to clutches and clutches, because one thing that I have observed and learned from retic breeders is that no matter how slow snakes are selling, they still pump out 8 clutches a year. So I don't know why, but that's just how we work.
I just quit trying to breed this season. You know what I mean? I was like, you know what? I was going to put some stuff together recently. I'm like, I'm just done. I'm just done. I got some stuff gravid. And if I get good eggs, I get good eggs. If I don't, I don't. I still have enough stuff from last year that I'm playing with. And it's, there's some fill projects. I should, if I get good clutches, I will have fill granite back tigers.
That's sick.
And I will have fill
hopefully
sun
the granite back is strong.
Yeah. Well, all that black ticking on the Mindanaos.
Yeah.
And if I get a good clutch from this one, the other girl, that will be Phil Sun Tigers head Indo.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm excited for the Indo stuff that you're coming out with.
Oh, and I should have a clutch of marbles. Man, what are they going to be? If it's a good clutch, it'll be 50% ternate, 25 fill, 6.25 jam, 6.25 Kalatoa.
Nice.
Yeah, I mean, it's just...
those would be interesting. And the fill marbles that you've already produced are pretty damn nice.
Well, I'm really interested to see how some fill blood works out with some ternate blood, because I think that's going to work.
You tried convincing me to do that pairing this year, and I definitely could have, but it's on my list for next season's going to be the season that I play with locality crosses. I plan to do a Solaire Coyote, because my female Coyote is extremely yellow and bright.
I'd run a Superdorf. I wouldn't run a Coyote. I slugged out on that breeding. The male Superdorf.
I'm just not wasting my wildcat Kalatoa with a Solaire.
Well, use a male. Don't you got a male Superdorf?
He's 2, but he's still like 4 feet.
Sean's 4 foot male from my line's breeding right now. He's 4 feet.
Nice.
Yeah, but what the fuck was I saying? Oh, I bred this Kalatoa wildcat that started the line at Chris Wilson's house. I bred him to a Greg Bryant Solaire, and she slugged out. Man. I was pissed. I was pissed. I was like, because I was trying to do that a long time ago, and it just I got bad eggs.
Yeah, I like the Coyote because of the color and the yellow enhancement, and she has like tiny, she has a shit ton of rosettes. So I think that's the route that I'm going to go. I'm growing up my holdback F1 Kalatoa, so it's going to be a while before I can play a lot with Kalatoa crosses. Because because again, my wild caught female's got a couple good clutches left in her, and I'm trying to find people who have, like Sean, he's got that male Calico that I'm hoping he sends to me. I have other people that have the Sean McMillan line Calico that came from Bushmaster that I'm hoping they send to me, because I really want to capitalize and try to use her for Calico stuff.
Yeah. Well, I think we covered pretty much everything here, but
yeah.
So
again, with the TK stuff, if you have more information that proved the information that I came out with as incorrect, well, the information I came out is not necessarily incorrect, but if there's new information that supports there being Kalatoas in the TK line, like, come out with it. Let's try to get all the Kalatoas we can in this country.
Yeah, well, and also people need to watch videos before they throw a fit about them.
That's the frustrating.
Because you also got the backlash for the fucking Samson shit just recently. You guys got backlash for that. I was like,
yeah,
the video ain't even out yet, and you're already getting shit. Like, how's that work?
We didn't even record it. Like,
yeah,
the
it wasn't even
video,
recorded.
the original video was legitimately going to just be talking about Samson. It had to end up being about all this other bullshit that happened because of it. I don't understand why we're. Anyways, yeah, it's again. Let's watch videos and then comment. I feel like that's a good start in the right direction.
Yeah, good piece of advice. Just
right.
Watch the thing that made you mad before you get mad.
Right, and every episode that Nathan and I have put out, we have not put out anything to piss. Like, we're not.
Yeah, it's not like my behavior.
Right, we don't like. Our aim is not to piss people off. Like, that's not what we're doing here. So give us the benefit of the doubt, please.
Yeah, like, you don't go out and like put a bunch of fucked up memes and be a dickhead for a day, then put a video out.
Right, I do that in my head, but like, that's as far as it goes.
Yeah, I follow through.
Yeah. Anyways, thanks for letting me have a platform to kind of speak about this, and hopefully people will watch this. And
yeah, I'll make a fucked up thumbnail
instead of people being like, well, there goes Lucas and Rodney colluding again.
Yeah, I'll make a fucked up thumbnail.
Yeah. All right, man.
All right. Sounds good.